This is the Duel Masters Shadowclash Collector's Tin. What is it exactly? Well, in the fourth set, namely Shadowclash of Blinding Night, the theme of the set was focused around the battle between the light and the dark civilizations. So, together with the set, naturally, they released this tin, which contained two decks packaged very nicely, centered around the light and the dark civilizations respectively. Let's just get right to it and open it up. This was actually the first genuine Duel Masters product I ever bought because it came with two playable decks and it was relatively cheap on eBay compared to other things. So it was a pretty good starting point. Right, remove the foil, and here on the bottom we have this, which says, "This Shadowclash Collector Set Gift Tin presents an epic battle in the eternal war between the righteous forces of light and the brooding forces of darkness. With this limited edition set, you can play both sides. So you get the Lethal Luminosity light deck, which contains 40 cards. We'll see the cards when we unpackage them, and the Deadly Decay Darkness deck. And we also have a deck guide in the box and the DMAX membership form, which we don't really care about. So anyway, this is the tin. It looks very nicely. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but these are not just painted, they're like in 3D, right? So it actually feels very nice to hold. And when we open it up, ta-da, we get the contents of the tin, which is, okay, the DMAX membership offer, we don't really care about this, that's not interesting. But then we have the Shadowclash Collector Set Deck Guide, and I am curious to see what this is. There's an introduction. This Shadowclash Collector Set presents an epic battle. This is just what was written on the back. Oh, okay. Then we have the deck lists for both of them. You can read these now, but I'll go over them obviously as we unbox the decks. Then we have some playing tips, apparently. Playing the Lethal Luminosity Light deck. With this deck you should be able to summon lots of creatures. The larger your army, the better. You also have some blockers, which will help keep you safe. When you have enough creatures, attack. And apparently it's based around Mistria, Sonic Guardian. It says that it's a key card in this deck. And, well, I won't read all of this now, but I will leave this on screen and you can read this if you want to. Then we have playing the Deadly Decay Darkness deck. I actually didn't know that these decks were named Lethal Luminosity and Deadly Decay. I was just calling them Shadowclash Light and Shadowclash Dark respectively. But anyway, with this deck you should be able to summon lots of creatures, so just like the other one. Destroy your opponent's creatures and get the benefits from destroying them. When you have more or better creatures than your opponent, attack. So it's got Mongrel Man, Death Smoke, Vampire Sylphie. What's actually, then we have some nice picture of the light civilization. This looks cool. And then there's a description of the civilization. I think we've seen descriptions like these in other decks as well. There's a bit of a story around the light civilization, light races, angel commands, berserkers, guardians, initiates, mecha thunder, starlight trees. And the deck also contains some nature cards for support, Beast Folk and Tree Folk, because in this set, in Shadowclash of Blinding Night, lots of cards were focused around supporting either the light or the dark civilizations, and nature cards supported light civilization and fire cards supported dark civilization. Again, you can read all of that if you want to. This is the picture of the darkness civilization. It features the invincible abyss. And then a description of the darkness civilization. Toxic gas and total darkness fill the vast underground world of the darkness civilization. This is the exact same description that we had in the Merciless Pummeling unboxing as well. You can go watch that if you want. Then we have a description of the darkness civilization with all the races, brain jokers, demon commands, whatever. Again, you can pause and read all of this if you want more lore. And at the very back of the booklet we have the Kaijudo code. I make no excuses, my actions are my voice. I have no enemies, my opponent is my teacher. I need no deceitful tricks, my character is my sword. I think not of quitting, my courage is my secret weapon. I know not of defeat, my experience becomes my strength. These are actually surprisingly valuable life lessons for a children's card game product. Anyway, I'll put this aside for now. And we will take a look at the two decks that we get. This is the main product, and we get the light deck and the dark deck. What's really interesting is that in this set, in Shadowclash of Blinding Night, there's a lot of like light cards that are anti-darkness specifically, and a lot of darkness cards that are anti-light. And we will see some of those here. So it should make the duel between these two decks in particular very, very interesting. At the end of this unboxing, I will pitch these two decks against each other in a duel to see who wins. But until then, let's get to unboxing the decks. We'll put this tin right here. So what should we start with? Let's start with the light deck. Yeah, I need to be very, very careful not to scratch the cards here. Not that they're necessarily very valuable cards in here, although there are some foils. But just out of respect for the cards, we don't want to damage them. There we go, that took longer than expected, huh? So, let's see what this deck contains. We have a foil Mistrias the Sonic Guardian. And this is really interesting because this card normally is not a foil, right? It's not shiny. But they made it into a foil for this deck in particular, and also they put, I'm not sure if you can see it well on camera, they put this little glowing key icon where the civilization is to indicate that this is a key card in the deck, and to my knowledge this is the only time they ever did that. So that's something, that is something. So that is one foil that we get. The second foil that you get is Cyforce Aurora Elemental. And again, this card is normally not a foil, but they made it into a foil especially for this product, which is kind of cool. So you get two exclusive foils that you can only get in this box. And then you also get a normal foil, which is Ethel Starsea Elemental, which is a foil from a very rare from the Evo Crushionators of Doom set. So you get 3 foils in the light deck. And that means, assuming there's 3 foils in the darkness deck as well, you get 6 foils in total for this product, which is much better than other prepackaged decks, structure decks or theme decks, whatever you want to call them. So this product was pretty special. Then let's see what cards we get. We get Sword of Benevolent Life, which says each of your creatures in the battle zone gets plus 1000 power until the end of the turn for each light creature you have in the battle zone. So right, this is an example of a card I was talking about. It's a nature card, but it synergizes well with light cards. I just put these here to have some space. Then we have Silver Axe. This is just a classic Beast Folk. Natural Snare, which, spoiler alert, this is the only piece of removal in this entire deck. So this is the only way to deal with certain cards from the Darkness deck. This is why I wanted to start with the light deck. Just keep this in mind when we get to the other one. But Natural Snare, very important card in this deck. Mighty Shouter, again another Beast Folk. Exploding Cactus, while you have a light creature in the battle zone, this creature gets plus 2000 power. So for all intents and purposes in this deck, this is a 3 mana 4000 creature, which is not bad. And we get 2 of them. We also get 3 Dimension Gates, acting as our shield triggers. They let you search for 1 creature in your deck and add it to your hand. We get 3 Bronze-Arm Tribes for that mana ramp. 2 Tawel, Vizier of Hope. At the end of each of your turns, you may untap all creatures in the battle zone. This used to be one of my favorite cards as a kid, because you could just attack with all of your creatures, including your blockers, and they wouldn't be vulnerable next turn. Then we have a bunch of Solar Rays, can tap something, can act as a defensive trigger. Screaming Sunburst, tap all creatures in the battle zone except light creatures. This also taps your own things, which means it will tap your nature creatures, but it's still a decent addition. Ravu, Seeker of Lightning. Whenever this creature attacks, you may return a light spell from your graveyard to your hand. So this is just like a discount for Iga. Then we have Moonlight Flash. Choose up to 2 of your opponent's creatures in the battle zone and tap them. So a double Solar Ray, but for double the cost. Not a shield trigger as well. Oh, and you get another 2 Mistriases. So you actually get 3 Mistrias. So they are not wrong that it's a key card in the deck, and they give you 3 of them to boot. This card, Milios the Day Stretcher, it's a blocker that can attack, apparently, and also each darkness creature costs 2 more to summon and each darkness spell costs 2 more to cast. And this is very good for this matchup in particular, because the other deck is, of course, primarily based on the Darkness Civilization, so this is one of the key cards in this matchup. Costs 5 mana, which is quite hefty, but if you can manage to get it on the board and have it stick, the other deck will have a really miserable time playing. We get 2 Meow, Vizier of Lightning. I would have liked to see some evolution creatures here. Like you have, 1, 2, 4, 7 Beast Folks, and you also have some Initiates. Maybe it would have been nice to add like a Fighter Dual Fang. I mean, they wouldn't add that because it's a super rare, but maybe a Bark Whip or something like that, just to make the deck a bit more spicy. But it is what it is. We have 2 Laura Giga, Sky Guardian, blocker costs 1 mana. Synergizes very well with Misthias, because if you have Misthias on the board, you can just play this guy for 1 mana and it will draw you a card for 1 mana, of course. Then we have Guranria Speed Guardian, and we have 3 of them, and it says this creature can be attacked or blocked by darkness creatures. So of course, this is not necessarily great in general, but when playing against the darkness deck, it is one of the more powerful cards. Players can't use the shield trigger abilities of darkness cards. It's Fureil, Seeker of Storms. So again, as you can see, a lot of anti-darkness cards in this deck. And 2 Emerald Grass for more blockers. And the last card in the deck, and probably the most important one, it's Eris Flight Elemental. This guy is a 5 mana 9000. He cannot break any shields, but he can attack untapped darkness creatures. So again, if you can get this guy to stick on the board, well, it's very nice against the darkness deck. And actually, I just noticed we have 3 angel commands in this deck, which is kind of cool. If you were to open some Shadowclash of Blinding Night booster packs, after you bought this product, maybe you could get an Arcadias and add it to the deck. Right, so let's gather all of these up. And let's take a look at the darkness deck now. Oh, again, I'll struggle a bit to open this as gently as possible. And when going through this deck, we now know what the light deck contains. We can kind of look at how, you know, some of the cards match up to the other ones. Oh, crap. Here we have the first card, the key card of this deck. It's Mongrel Man. And just like before, this card was released in holo version just for this product. And it has the little key icon there. I'm not sure how good you can see it on camera. And this guy is just like Misthias, but he draws you cards when things die instead of when things are put into the battle zone, which for competitive Duel Masters, it's obviously much worse, but actually in this format where things get traded a lot, it's really not all that bad. So that's the key card for this deck. Then we have our second foil, which is Vampire Sylphie. It's a very rare from base set, and it's one of my favorite cards of all time. When you put this creature into the battle zone, destroy all creatures that have power 3000 or less. Really cool card. And then the third foil, which was again, it's normally a rare, but it was made into a holo version just for this product. It's Vashuna the Sword Dancer. And this guy was again, like, you know, on the schoolyard, this guy was the shit, because he's a 5 mana 7000 double breaker. But once your opponent doesn't have any more shields, he's useless and can no longer attack. Also, something I forgot to mention is that this is the preview card for the Darkness deck, and you can see, if I can get the angle just right, it says preview in foil right here, and this was the Cyforce. For the other deck, for the light deck, you can see that it says preview right there. Something that I completely missed while filming this video, these are preview cards because they were actually released in set 5, Survivors of Megapocalypse. And this product, the tin, was released in set 4, Shadowclash of Blinding Night. So these two cards, Cyphers and Vashuna, were actually not out yet by the time the tin came out, which is why they are marked as preview. And to my knowledge, this is actually the only time they did this like key thing on the text box or the preview thing. I remember when I first got this set, I had no idea this was a thing, so I just thought at first that the cards were fake. But no, it is real, and that's something that they did. Right, and we have Sword of Malevolent Death. Until the end of the turn, each of your darkness creatures in the battle zone each of your creatures in the battle zone gets, while attacking this creature, gets plus 1000 for each darkness card in your mana zone. So if we compare this to its counterpart, it was Sword of Benevolent Life, now we have Sword of Malevolent Death, right? And this one gave power based on light creatures in the battle zone. This one gives power based on darkness creatures in the mana zone. So that is the difference. But this one also costs 2 more. We have some classic cards, Super Explosive Volcanodon, Fire Sweeper Burning Hellions, a Burst Shot for defense, some Brawler Zygers. These are just very like generic cards from base set or Evo. We have Blasto is Explosive Soldier. While you have a darkness creatures in the battle zone, this creature gets plus 2000 power. So this is the counterpart of Exploding Cactus from the nature deck, right? It was this card. While you have a light creature in the battle zone, this creature gets plus 2000 power. So there is this duality in this set, like I said before, of nature creatures supporting light cards and fire creatures supporting darkness cards. Anyway, moving on, we have some more Blastos. We have Volcano Smog Deceptive Shade. I don't know if I've ever seen this card before. But it's each light creature costs 2 more to summon and each light spell costs 2 more to cast. But if you remember, the card from the light deck that did this cost 5 mana and was a blocker. This guy costs 6 mana and is not a blocker. Then we have Swamp Worm, which makes your opponent destroy a thing. Then Soul Gulp, an anti-light card, which says your opponent chooses and discards a card from his hand for each light creature he has in the battle zone. So this can effectively discard 2, 3 or even more cards if your opponent has a lot of light creatures in the battle zone. Not that great in general, but when you're facing against a light deck, then of course it is pretty good. We have Scratchclaw, who is a Slayer and gets plus 1000 for each other darkness creature you have in the battle zone. Then we get to one of the most important cards in the deck, against the light deck in particular, and it is actually why I think the darkness deck has a big advantage. It is this guy, Purple Piercer. It says this creature can be attacked by light creatures and this creature can be blocked by light creatures. Right, so why am I saying that this guy is so good? Well, the light deck also had something similar, right? It had, let me just find it. It had Gulan Rias, which is basically the same thing. It's a light creature that cannot be attacked and blocked by darkness creatures, and this is a darkness creature that cannot be attacked and blocked by light creatures. Why is this guy so much better than this guy? Well, there's 2 reasons. First of all, the light deck doesn't have any removal spells outside of Natural Snare. This is something that I mentioned at the start. So that means that there is basically no way to get rid of this guy outside of casting Natural Snare on it. There is no way of getting rid of this guy, except, okay, the deck is not only light creatures, it also has some nature creatures. But let's look at what nature creatures it has. It has Silveraxe, which has power of 1000. This guy has power 2000. It has Exploding Cactus, which can get over it. And it has Bronze Arm Tribe, which again has power 1000, so it cannot get rid of this guy. So my camera overheated because it fucking loves to do that. But anyway, I was saying, okay, there's also Mighty Shouter, right, to complete the list that can trade into Purple Piercer. But there's the bottom line is that there's very few ways to get rid of this guy, right? The nature creatures that can kill him are very low power, and there's not that much removal in that deck. Whereas when we look at Gulan Rias, he can get killed by fire creatures, and okay, Volcanodon can kill him, Burning Hellion can kill him, Blasto can kill him, Brawler Zyre can kill him. So it's actually quite easy to get rid of him. And not only that, but the Darkness deck also has a lot of removal. It has Swamp Worm, we'll see later that it has Death Smoke, it has Burst Shot that can kill it. So just in general, Gulan Rias is not a big problem for this deck, but Purple Piercer, this bastard, is just a huge pain in the butt for the light deck to deal with. And I haven't played the duels yet, but I am willing to bet that if the darkness deck can get, one or two of these guys on the board, then it has very, very solid chances to take the whole game home. Then we have Photoside, Lord of Wastes. This is a 5 mana 9000 creature that cannot break shields, but it can attack untapped light creatures. So this is the equivalent of Eris from the last deck. But just like before, this guy is actually so much stronger than Eris because this guy dies to removal, right? There are Death Smokes in this deck, there is Swamp Worm that can kill it. This guy doesn't die to anything, right? The only way for the light deck to ever get rid of it is to either natural snare it or trade Eris into it, right? That's it. So this guy is a huge powerhouse. And you might be noticing that I am giving a lot of props to the Darkness deck. I don't think that it's necessarily better. I just think that in this matchup, the light deck will just have a very difficult time to deal with it. So we have Mongromans. We have 3 of them, just like we had 3 Mestriases in that deck. We have Bloody Skeeto for the blocker, Marrow Ooze, 3 cheap blockers. The light deck also had Laura Giga for a cheap blocker, and that one was better, especially with the synergy with Mistrias. Players can't use shield triggers, abilities of light cards, Giga Bolver. Then Gamil, Knight of Hatred. Whenever this creature attacks, you may return a darkness creature from your graveyard to your hand. There's the Death Smokes that I was talking about for removal. We have Dark Reversal, which can bring back a creature. So even if the light deck gets rid of Photoside or Purple Piercers, you can then even bring them back with Dark Reversal. Then we have Critical Blade that can kill a blocker. Notably, it can kill Cyphos Aurora Elemental, because this guy's a blocker and he's really big. And if this guy dies to Critical Blade, you will be very, very sad. You have Bone Spider, and just a few more classic cards from base set, Bone Assassins, and 3 more Bloody Skeetos. Wow, you have 4 Bloody Skeetos, which is actually quite a good blocker. So that is the deck. Let me just bunch it all up together. So there we have it. These are the 2 decks. You'll notice that they are very, very similar in that pretty much any card that one deck has, there is an equivalent in the other deck, just with the civilizations flipped and maybe a slightly different effect. But yet somehow, because of just the nature of the decks and how they operate, this deck I think has a slight advantage. There are some ways that the light deck could win. For instance, it has mana ramp, right? It has Bronze Arm Tribe. It can get to higher mana faster. And if it can manage to do that quick enough, then it can outpace the Darkness deck, especially considering that it has Mistrias and it could draw a whole bunch of cards. So I think it's time to jump right into the duels. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the light deck will surprise us all and win. But let's get onto it and see how it goes. Right, so let's get into it. As per usual, I'll be doing post-game commentary since I think that's both more entertaining and insightful. And I'll be playing the clips at 1.5 times speed just so we're not here forever. Charging a 6 mana card to start with, that makes sense. Especially since that card is not that useful to begin with unless it's super late game. No plays on turn 1 from either side, but I don't think either deck has a 1-drop, so that makes sense. There's a Bloody Skeeto coming out, so on turn 2 we have a Bloody Skeeto. No turn 2 play from the light deck. I mean, these are pretty slow decks, both of them, so we shouldn't expect much action in the early game. No turn 3 play either from the dark deck, but there we go. The first attacker is on the board and it's Gulan Rias, which is interesting because it cannot be blocked by Bloody Skeeto since it can be blocked by darkness creatures at all. And it gets Death Smoked. I'm not sure if wasting Death Smoke on that is good. Death Smoke is a very valuable card, but then again that card is very annoying to deal with for a darkness deck. And the Dimension Gate coming in and instantly getting the Eris, which makes sense because Eris is probably the most important card. And now probably regretting not saving the Death Smoke as it would have been really good on the Eris. 5 mana tapped. That probably means, yep, it's Mongroman coming in. So now every time a creature is destroyed, the Darkness deck can draw 1 card. And of course the light deck would just play out the Eris. So Eris can just attack untapped Darkness creatures, so no Darkness creature is safe. But on the plus side, every time a card is destroyed, the Darkness deck draws 1 card, and there's Photoside to contest the Eris. So the 2 big 9000 power Titans are both on the board. So let's see what happens now. There's no Natural Snare for the Photoside because Natural Snare has been charged to play the Dimension Gate. So, ooh. Okay, let's see. A Bronze Arm Tribe and Eris tries to attack the Mongroman, but Bloody Skeeto blocks, of course, which also draws 1 card because of the Mongroman. And now probably the Photoside will kill the Eris. But there's a second Mongroman coming, so every time a card is destroyed, we can draw 2 cards. So that means that if Photoside trades with Eris, there's 4 cards drawn in hand, since there were 2 creatures destroyed times 2 cards each. So now the Darkness player has a crap ton of cards in hand. And honestly, the game is probably just over on display. I mean, there's just way too many cards in hand to deal with. Mistrea's coming in though, so trying to recoup some of that card advantage, but honestly now it's probably too late. Like the Darkness player probably has something like 5-6 cards in hand. And playing 2 Purple Piercers, oh my god. Breaking 2 shields as well. You remember how I said at the start of the game, or like before the game, that Purple Piercer is a huge problem card. Very, very difficult to deal with, especially with the Natural Snare in mana. No nature creatures that can contest it. So honestly, this is looking very bad for the light deck. But you know, let's just see what happens. There is a Mistreas, so yeah, we can spam the board. There's a Laura Giga, which lets us draw a card. The Bronze Arm Tribe, draw another card. So a lot of card draw, but ooh, and Tawal as well. So Tawal means that, you know, we can attack safely, break shields. Oh, okay, or kill the Mongroman. I guess that makes sense, right? Want to take some threats off the board because, yeah, there's only 3 shields left. There's 3 creatures on the board, so it's looking very dangerous. But then again, the light player also has 3 creatures on board. So, you know, in 2 turns, the light player could make a comeback. But I don't think it'll last 2 turns, honestly. Darkness player, Darkness deck, yeah, just spamming the board with a lot of creatures, which, I mean, makes sense. And now there's those Purple Piercers probably, oh, yeah, there we go. The Purple Piercers go in, take some shields. There's a shield trigger, a Dimension Gate, but honestly, I'm not sure what can be taken that will help here. Skyforce, I guess, is something, right? Big blocker. But Purple Piercer takes another shield. And yeah, this is tough because there's only 1 shield left and there's 2 Purple Piercers on the board, which means it's over next turn unless that's a shield trigger. But if that is a shield trigger, then the light player can come back because he played a Cyforce and Solar Ray. So Cyforce took back Solar Ray from the mana zone, which means a creature can be tapped. Double thinking about it, I guess. Probably the Marrows, right? Yeah. And now the guy that can kill some things. And keep in mind that because of Towel, all of the creatures that attacked get untapped at the end of the turn. So Laura Giga destroyed Marrow Ooze, but he will get untapped at the end of the turn, so he can block. So there we go, everything gets untapped. But I mean, honestly, it's looking really rough because of the 2 Purple Piercers that can just get a free attack in. And I mean, there's 3 other creatures that can attack, so I'm not even sure if there is a shield trigger in that deck that can resist for 1 more turn here. And that smoke kills the Cyforce as well, so even if it is a shield trigger, which it isn't, it's just a Mistreas. Dark deck wins. Right, it's time for game 2. Let's see if the light deck can make a comeback. It's going first this time around, so that should be a small advantage. Probably nothing's gonna happen for the first few turns, just because these decks are not really fast. A Mio charged in mana on the light side, and the Gigabolver charged in mana on the dark side. Again, not expecting to see anything for the first few turns, but there is a Brawler Zyger, so there we go. That's the first creature summoned this game. Mighty Shouter in mana, summoning Guran Rias, that was the name. It's interesting that, yeah, I guess Guran Rias is better than Mighty Shouter in this situation. Breaking a shield and summoning Blasto, who goes up to 4,000 if there's a darkness creature in the battle zone, which there currently isn't, but there will probably be next turn. Try to charge Emerald Grass, but played Emerald Grass instead, probably because playing nothing this turn would be pretty bad. I mean, that Towel that was put in mana would have been good, but delaying one more turn without playing anything would probably not go well. So it's interesting, the Bone Assassin has been charged and summoned the Purple Piercer instead. Charging a 4-mana creature to play a 3-mana creature, but it makes sense because, like we've seen so far, Purple Piercer is just so strong in this match. So there we go. Summoning Mistrias, the key card, which should generate some card advantage. But Purple Piercer is already on the board, and Soul Gulp, oh my god, discards 1 card for every guide creature in the battle zone, so 2 cards discarded, and it was Psyforce and I believe Natural Snare that was discarded, so 2 incredibly important cards. So this is really not looking good for the guide deck. And also no creature was played, so no cards drawn from Mistrias. Oof, this is looking rough. Bronze Arm Tribe charges a mana and draws 1 card because of the Mistrias effect. And 4 mana left. It seems like no more creatures played. I think because there's no more nature mana, no more creatures can be played. Going in for shields, interesting, even though it leaves the creatures vulnerable. But I guess you kind of have to do that, because if you don't go in for shields now, you're never gonna win. So even though the creatures can be destroyed now in retaliation, I mean, you got to do what you have to do. But going for shields instead of killing the creatures, which is probably correct. Shield triggers a Mansion Gate, getting Laura Giga. I mean, there's not much you can get, but a 1-mana blocker that also draws you a card is pretty good. So yeah, going for shields instead of killing the creatures, which kind of makes sense because there's still no real way to deal with Purple Piercer. So leaving the opponent with 0 shields might be winning next turn. Laura Giga blocker is good, but it cannot block Purple Piercer, so what do you do about that, right? Natural Snare has been discarded, so what's the solution here? Drawing more cards with Mistrias, fishing for something, I guess. And oh, there is the something. Okay, Sword of Benevolent Life. It actually makes Bronze Arm Tribe stronger, and that's like the only creature that can kill Purple Piercer. So that gets rid of it. And actually now the light deck is presenting lethal for next turn, which is, and okay, Critical Blade kills a blocker, kills Laura Giga, and Super Explosive Volcanodon swings for game. So there we go, that was fun. It turns out that Purple Piercer is just too much for the light deck to deal with. One last thing here, this duel has been a part of the starter deck bracket tournament that I am doing on my channel. If you haven't seen the introduction to that, please make sure to go check it out. And now I will be showing the bracket as it has evolved so far, and I will be filling it in with the current result. So if you don't want to get spoiled, you can go ahead and close this video now. Take care. There we go, filled in today's result. The astute of you might also notice that I changed the name of the decks to Deadly Decay and Lethal Luminosity respectively, because while filming this video, I learned that these decks actually have a name as opposed to Tin Dark and Tin Light as they were previously named on the bracket. So there we go. Anyway, see you next time.